I think he's 100% in on football and getting better.
So one thing I've noticed about TexAgs Rewind here, presented by Specs, is actually leading up to it. There's a lot of animosity. There's some anger. Nick, have you noticed a little bit of the interns kind of feel like, hey, we're taking over?
Yes, definitely. But I just had to put Carson in his place real quick because he didn't know who Trevor Knight was.
No, he knew. It took him a second.
He didn't, David. Though it's okay. We can
He
call him out.
This guy's Mr. Aggie. I got his back.
He didn't know Trevor Knight was the one that led
the one who played
A&M in one of the greatest games they've ever played at Kyle Field against Tennessee.
He knew.
I'm not at the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Get that graphic out of here.
He knew. All right? He knew. It took him a moment. It's like a senior moment. Like we all have.
I'm just switching this all over the place. How about that camera angle? What about that one? There's no one there.
Why are you so angry?
Today has been an angry day for me back here.
Why? Do you need a hug?
No. That's an off-air conversation.
Okay, I'm not gonna hug you off air. It was only for camera purposes, just to do a bit. Hey, Carson, you have anything to say? You don't have to talk about that topic. Anything to say for yourself, though?
No, I mean that's just how it goes here at TexAgs.
I had your back.
I'm glad someone did. I'm glad some people in the YouTube chat and the text line.
Yeah,
you had the show. They had my
You're
back.
starting to get a little, cult following backing you up there, Carson.
Anywho.
Lead the charge.
People know that I know.
All right, Angry, tell us what was on the show.
Well, we had OB for about an hour and a half, so that was awesome. We had Chris Gordy, Locked On SEC podcast. Didn't catch up with them in Dallas. So we
you ever had a
caught up with them
gordita?
today. I don't think so.
You think I have?
Yeah, definitely.
You think I've had a gordita?
I don't know what that
You think
is.
I go to Taco Bell? No.
At some
never.
point you have.
No, I mean in 1984.
Yeah,
No,
there you go.
I don't know
We had, who else? We had Brian Hadad and Tom Hart. There you go. Watch the rewind.
I think Mark Naboo is going to be one of those guys that the experience that he gained last year, plus the new offensive coordinator, plus the new strength and conditioning coach, I think all those factors are going to make Mark Naboo a better player. I think he's 100% in on football and getting better. And I think the only question I have about Mark Naboo, well, I guess I have two. What position he's going to play? Right. I assume it's going to be center. I assume.
Right.
And how good is he going to be? I think he's going to be a good player. I think he already is a good player. Is how big is the leap going to be?
Sure. Well, and a couple follow-ups to that. The interesting part about Naboo is he may not even end up being your starting center, and that's a good problem to have because the is it Kolinu Fau?
Yeah.
Right. He could end up winning that job, which is. I'm not saying that as a disrespect. I'm saying that as a compliment to the position that you have a guy who has started and another guy who's coming in from Utah that can compete for this position, giving you not only depth, but just guys who have actually played. He's done it in the SEC. He's also versatile, can play multiple positions, and just a very bright, nice young man.
But if that happens, does he find his way into the starting lineup at guard?
Right.
I mean, he's a big, strong guy, and I assume he's even stronger. I mean, I haven't seen him like we've seen some of the guys, and we all know they look more defined.
Yep.
Would that be a
yeah?
Right? So, and I assume stronger because I know that's what Tommy Moffitt was saying. He wanted to get him stronger. So he's already a strong guy.
He's strong. If you have Trey Zune at left tackle, right? Armaj Reed Adams at left guard, right? Presumably.
I'm sure Cam Dewberry will have to say something.
Yeah, Cam's going to get mixed for either right or left, right? You have the center position that we've talked about with Mark Naboo or Fau. Is that Fau?
I guess.
Right guard, Chase Basantis or Cam.
I would assume Chase DeSantis.
Yep. And then right tackle, Crownover or Fothery, right? More than likely. Right? And I mean, there are other combinations and there's other players that have developed that we could see. I mean, in all these positions, I even mentioned TJ Shanahan. Where does he fit in?
So who could be one of those guys that ends up being a starter? Because sometimes you see a guy come on that it happens every year. We didn't see this coming.
Right.
I think I think you just indicated that the depth is better. It's going to be much better.
It's better. And your quarterback back. This is with how many quarterbacks played for them last year? I guess that's why some of us are. I'm not expecting 10-2 or 9-3. I could see a path to it. But 8-4 to 9-3, that should be what we expect. You don't see that?
I just feel like anytime you bring in a new coach, it's going to take some time. There's a lot of new faces in that portal. I mean, it's, we've seen it year in and year out. Some teams bring in pieces through the portal and it works out. I look at LSU 2 years ago. Brian Kelly rebuilt this whole secondary through the portal and it worked out. Last year, their transfer portal class, not so good. Look at Auburn. I mean, they struggle with that big C word all year, chemistry, trying to find the right mix. And so I allow a little bit of leeway to say, look, got to give Elko time to get his feet under him, settle back in. What he did at Duke was awesome. Again, this is the SEC. It's a different animal. He's coached here before as a DC, but not as a head coach. So that's why I kind of say, like, let's pump the brakes a little bit. I just feel like we're suddenly, like, it was like a snowball rolling down the hill. It was just like, yeah, I think A&M could be good. Yeah, I think A&M could be pretty good. To suddenly, 8-4 is at minimum. It's like, okay, well, let's slow down a little bit. Like, if they go 7-5, what does it look like? Was it a last-second field goal loss? Was it this or that? Like, no one's questioning he's the right hire and this thing is gonna build for the future. But I just caution people, because when they lose a game to Arkansas, like, don't get all up in arms and, we should have hired Mark Stoops or somebody else. Like, you pump the brakes. He's got to give him time. This is the same thing that happened with Florida and Billy Napier. It's like, Billy Napier's a good coach, but from the minute he stepped foot in Gainesville, it's like, you better win. It's like we give coaches no time anymore to settle in and, like, at least develop their programs.
And one of the storylines that popped up was at the top level, Missouri's schedule is going to allow them to be successful, and if they can replicate what they did last year, they're going to be in the playoffs. However, as you dive deeper into that schedule, and to an extent as well for Ole Miss, if they're a 2-loss team to the 2 best teams on their schedule, is the rest of their schedule strong enough to get them an at-large berth? And I think that's a really interesting wrinkle, and we won't know that. I think it's a fun talking point if and when they suffer a loss. They should get off to a really good start if they can hold their water. But what is a 12-team playoff going to look like? And what is strength of schedule where's that going to land in the discussion with all of these teams? Especially if you're not an elite team with a history and a logo. I mean, I don't think very many one-loss teams get in front of Florida State last year, but one-loss Alabama does, right? I mean, it matters who you are and what your history is. We can argue all day that it shouldn't, but it does. So, yeah, I think with the quarterback receiver tandem that they've got, they have to replace the SEC's leading rusher in one way, but in the other way, they have to replace a former Division II walk-on at running back. How hard is that going to be, right? I mean, they found magic before. Maybe they can find it again and just do it by committee. But they won a lot of close games last year to get to that position, and they faced an Ohio State team in the Cotton Bowl that was down to like a third-string quarterback. So once you dive into the details, you realize it's not as easy as it looks on paper.
And so if State is 5-7, 6-6 on the year, but offensively, they're just obviously a lot better. If they're scoring close to 30 points per game and State needs to lose some shootouts. That's something they've never really done. You go back to Kiffin's first year at Ole Miss, and I've made that comparison a lot, that their fans got super excited about the future because they scored a ton of points. They couldn't stop anybody. They were one of the worst defenses in college football. But when you lose to Alabama, it's better to lose sometimes 51-50 than it is to lose 10-7. Because at least you get your fans excited about what's going on. You feel like you can compete when you score points. I think that's where State is this year. They just want to see some points on the board.
How rough is it as a State fan to know that Ole Miss is in these conversations and has been on this trajectory really for a while?
It's not pleasant. I'll tell you that much. I think what I've told people when I talk to State fans is this: you got to kind of enjoy this football season in a bubble. Ole Miss is going to do what they do. We'll worry about Ole Miss when we get to the Egg Bowl. That's easier said than done because the Egg Bowl really permeates things in this state 365 days a year. But Ole Miss is going to be good this year unless they have some sort of unusual injury situation. Their schedule lends itself to them winning 9, 10, 11 games. It's interesting when you talk to Ole Miss people. Normally, if an Ole Miss team were to go 9-3 and end up in the Citrus Bowl, that's one of the top 10 seasons in their history. That would be a massive disappointment for them this year. So the pressure's on at Ole Miss, and if you're a State fan, I guess you hope that they fold underneath it. You just have to hope that for Mississippi State, that in a couple of years when Jeff Lebby gets this program going in the right direction, that can be you that's in the national discussion.
Talking to Brian Hadad here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Brian is also on the Boss Firearms Hotline. I'm looking at their away games. I mean, all right, you mentioned
pleasant.
No, you mentioned Arizona State. Okay, you better win that game because I don't know where they get a win on the road.
Yeah, there are in the SEC this year. I would say there are 6 teams that you would say are real legit playoff contenders, and that's Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Missouri. Those are teams that everybody could see winning going into the college football playoff. State plays 5 of those teams, and 4 of them are on the road. They're at Georgia, at Texas, at Tennessee, and at Ole Miss. That's as brutal a schedule. We made a lot of jokes last year when they knew that the schedule was going to change about, maybe they won't have to play Alabama this year, and they didn't. The conference gave them that, I guess, but they gave them at Georgia and at Texas. And gosh, when you think about next year, I mean, Georgia and Texas coming to Starkville, those are great games for atmosphere and everything, but you'd like to be able to win your home games.
Carson, since this has been a rough one for you, tell the people.
Like, comment, subscribe, share it. Do everything you possibly can to get TexAgs. Get us to 20,000 subscribers.
He's right.